Alright guys, welcome back. I got the engine separated in the last video, got the case split. So I cheated a little bit and I've already pulled this crankshaft out of here, but so essentially I had to work a little bit on that rear thrust bearing and the crank just pulls out like that. I'm going to set it over here on the bench. So, I can pop you out of the stand. What I found, looking for excessive end play, that popped out of there. Not sure how well I can get you in here. Anyway, I made this adapter. We'll talk about that first. To go on this engine stand, and measured the distance, drilled the holes exactly that distance, welded this pieces of tubing, and then made this plate to bolt it so I can actually rotate it and it sort of stays on center and it's good and rigid. It's not flopping around. I don't have any 2x4s jammed in it. But what I found when I pulled this crank out and looked at the thrust surface on this rear main bearing, it is hammered. It is bad. Look at, it'd be hard for me to show you, but there is a huge lip right there where it is eaten into, and that's where all that excess end play was coming from. So I'm glad I pulled this apart. What I also found was, I must have done this when I put it together originally, it goes this way, there is this dowel pin in the case that locates the bearing, keeps it from spinning, and it's like I missed the hole the first time. So that's that extra dent right there, couldn't have helped it. And where, I don't know if it wasn't tight or that hole was hogged up, or when this hole mushroomed into that one, if it didn't seat properly, and then when I torqued it down some other bad things happened. But that was not good. What I'm not sure is what exactly caused it. So let me stand this crank up and show you. Maybe I can do it without dropping it. That's the last thing I need. It stood up on the floor. So that's the thrust surface. It doesn't look horribly bad. There's a 65 engraved in there. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's a year. Who knows? Anyway. It looked alright, but there's some marks right here. They're kind of out to the edge, but what I really noticed was this big dent right here. I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be there, so I don't know. And there's some more pecker tracks over here, so I don't know if a piece of trash got around in there between the counterweight and the back in the block and put this divot in there. So what I'm assuming is that raised spot right there is what grooved all that out. So another thing I noticed, let me lay this back down, I found a source for thick enough gaskets where I could use get thicker shims and make up that distance. The journals, I mean, I'm sure people have seen better, but they're a little scratched up, but they're not horrible. It fit tight here in the web of the case, so the case isn't hammered. Looks okay right here. What I'd found also was when I popped this bearing half out, this tang right here is what holds it in place, and part of it's gone on the block. It's chipped out right there. So I don't know if the crank moving knocked it over. I don't know what happened, but I'm sure it wasn't like that when I put it together originally. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to fix that and show you the front one. See, that's what it should look like. That should be be a notch like that. And it is the same way in the other half of the case. Since the thrust was going that way, it broke it out on the inside on this portion. So I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna fix that. A new block is not in the budget, but I'm pretty sure I can do something with that. This case is aluminum. I might be able to weld that up, clean that back out. This groove surface isn't super critical. It just allows the oil to make its way into the bearing, and they don't look the best either. So got some work to do. Anyway, so that's where we are. Maybe I'll pop you in the stand and we will work on pulling the rod bearings off. They seem okay, and I'll do some little research and check our end clearance to see how that turns out. Alright, so I checked the book. The side clearance between the rods and the crank is between 6 and 8 thousandths, so we're 1.5 to 2 millimeters. So, looks like a ton of play, but 8 goes down in this one, and this is looking down from the engine, so it's one cylinder 1's here, 3, 4, and 2, but a 6 goes. So I've checked all this, and a 6 will fit, and an 8 won't. So that's one thing that's actually within spec, which is probably fortunate because I don't ever remember checking that back when I did this engine when I was a teenager. One thing, so anyway, I was going to pull the rods off and look at the journals. I think they may actually be okay, the bearings, etc. But I noticed the punch marks on here, and I've re-looked at the book. And I said 3, 1, 4, 2. Yeah. Air blows down, 3's like the furthest away from the fan. So there's 2 marks on that one. There's 3 marks on that one. There's 1 mark on that one. And the only one that appears to be right is this one right here. It has 4 marks. So I way screwed this up. But since it's been running there, I'm going to remark all these, and it is what it is. That way the wrist pin bushings will match up with the piston pins. So let's go ahead and pop one of these rod bolts off, rod nuts, which apparently are 14s. Well, they must have been torqued to a little more than 5 foot-pounds, or whatever the spec is. Alright, so before I knock something on the floor, let me get a little better way to hold this, and I'll bring it back when I've got one off. Okay, I got the nuts off. So there we go. Well, it doesn't look great either. So I must have had some trashy oil in here or something, or bits and pieces of, just so I don't lose my orientation. Yeah, bits and pieces of thrust bearing floating around in there. But the rod journals themselves look pretty good. Okay, I'll pull the rest of these off camera and bring you back, and we'll talk about our next steps here.